Finally, I got my voice back. That was terrible. I got the flu and lost my voice.
Mm. Yeah, I lose my voice sometimes because I sleep kind of weird, and sometimes I end up punching myself in the throat for an entire night. I'm not joking.
Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah, it's always a pain because I talk a lot.
Yeah, me too. If you probably know that. All right, let's do this.
They shoot the shit. They shoot the shit. Shoot, 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 shit, shit, shit. Shooting the shit with Chippa.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Shooting the Shit with Chippa, the podcast that's very similar to the Chipman Brothers Tangent, except it doesn't have Movie Bob, and I replace him with other interesting people that I think you guys should talk to as well. Um, Tonight's guest goes by Leonidas701 on Twitter, and I'll have him introduce himself. Introduce yourself, buddy.
Yeah, what up? I'm Leonidas701. You can call me Elijah. Um, and in preparation for this recording, I've spent the last hour listening to More Than a Feeling on loop to make sure that I'm on the same vibe as Chris.
Oh, that's awesome. So, yes, to make sure that you're on the same vibe as this East Coast, Boston, born and raised gentleman. God, that song is awesome. Now you get it playing in
It's
my
one of the
head.
it's one of the best riffs of all time. Like just dun 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 dun.
It's
It's like
so good.
I could listen to just that riff for like an entire day.
In fact, it made me so happy during our back and forths on Twitter when you had brought up is everybody in Boston as into Boston as I think they probably are? And the answer is yes. Them and Aerosmith came out around the same time, and they're like those two untouchable um, bands. Any bar around here, you're gonna hear More Than a Feeling
I mean,
any
it's
night of the week.
eh, it's better. You guys are better off than Chicago, where their main bands are Chicago and Styx. And I like Chicago and Styx, but they have like very clear like massive down periods.
Yes, yeah, and Boston, man, that initial studio album, self-titled Boston album, is one of like when I heard it when I was young. I didn't know it was from 1973. It's like 1988, 89, and my dad plays it for me, and it's like this sounds so new and different even
Yeah,
then. And it was coming out, around the same time as you name it, from that period that had a very distinctive recording sound. This sounded, there's multiple guitars layered over
yeah.
each other, and the
The first
vocals
album
are
where the guitar was recorded directly instead of having a microphone in front of a speaker.
exactly right. And it's such a labor of love. It's kind of like when you read the history of it, it's kind of like the first Foo Fighters album where Boston was a band,
Mhm.
but no, there was a particular gentleman that was fully in
Yeah.
creative control of all of that and
Well,
didn't need
for the first Foo Fighter albums, it literally was just all Dave
just Dave
Grohl.
Grohl, exactly. And I love listening to an album like that where you're just like, wow, like you can just because sometimes just hearing someone straight up recorded playing live or playing in a studio is great, but there's also really great produced things, and I love when you can have an example of that in like a rock album, just like a straight up regular old rock album without any crazy extra stuff added in.
Oh yeah, like great production is the main reason why like 90% of all hair metal bands sound good at all.
Exactly, and you see them perform live, and you go, oh crap, yeah, it's just a look, isn't it? Damn.
Yeah, like I think like three-fourths of Poison were recruited from a modeling agency.
Don't worry, we'll fix it in post.
Yeah. What else? Oh, I like learned like a month ago, I think, that the like the spaceship, the Boston spaceship.
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually a guitar. Like if you ever see the full thing, it's like that's on the bottom
Yep.
half of a guitar and it goes on forever and it's so cool looking.
It's funny. I used to go through my dad's record albums, and it took me laying on the floor next to it, and I kind of just had it laid up against a record player while I was listening to it, and tilted my head upside down to recognize that because it's an upside down guitar,
Yeah.
right?
Ooh, I have a thing to tell you about record albums when we get to that point. When we
I
start
mean, you could
talking
say it
about
now if you want. Yeah.
so the closest thing that I've had to like you have you ever gotten a feeling where you're like looking through your parents' old stuff and you start like seeing like original versions of things that you've seen reproduced out over and over and over and over again?
Yes.
Yeah, so recently, like over Thanksgiving, I went to my friend's house and uh so my mom just texted me.
That's
Sorry, I'll put
weird,
my
right?
phone on
You were
silent.
just. I think our ears were ringing.
Yeah. So I went over to my friend's house, and so the main point of this podcast would be like us comparing our very different upbringings.
Yes,
I'm
that was
first.
the
Yeah.
idea. Yes.
Yeah, I'm first generation from. I'm first generation. My parents came over as refugees from the Russian part of Ukraine, which that's a whole political thing I'll get into. Uh, from the Russian part of Ukraine in the late '80s, early '90s, I think. So I'm first generation American, and my best friend, his mom is in the same is also came over as a refugee, but his dad is like all American, and at their house they have his grandfather's old, not even records, but like a thing that was like a massive, like a double wide record or whatever they were called. They were like 14 inches long. They're like a specific format that's like impossible to find nowadays, like the laser
Oh.
disc of records. And I was staying in their guest room, which is where they have all those records in that record player. And I just on a whim started like looking through it, and I just saw all these like old albums. Like I saw the Creedence Clearwater Revival, their Skiffle Band concept album. I
Oh.
saw a Japanese version of a Japanese release of Purple Rain by Prince. I saw Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. I saw the original record of Led Zeppelin's the album that like everyone keeps talking about when they talk about Led Zeppelin, the one with the massive apartment building or whatever it's called.
Ah, yes. Houses of
And
the Holy.
yeah, I saw Goodbye Yellow
No,
Brick Road.
physical graffiti. Sorry. Whoa.
Yeah,
Boo.
yeah.
Yeah.
I saw Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. I saw like
Oh.
original Beatles records, and like I was just looking through them all, just these two shelves of records, just like going through them and like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, and it's like looking through them, and like there was these ones that were like just in sleeves that I had to open up to look at them, and just when I opened them, my eyes were like just kept getting wider and wider, and it's like the closest thing I've had to like that type of legacy experience in my entire life,
That's so
and
cool.
yeah, and it was just like mind blowing to me because I've never felt anything like that before.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I agree. Records and old media, they seemed, whether they knew it or not, it has a legacy feeling to it, right? Like you even a new one, like bands that are releasing them now, you pick it up and you go, this seems like there's a craftsmanship to it. The way the album is done, that when you
yeah,
can't hold something, you just don't feel that anymore.
yeah. For me, it's just like all the history that I feel. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, like this is something that's lasted this long, and I can't get that with anything else because, like I said, my family came over. My parents were like adults when they came over. Like my parents weren't even married yet. Well, they were. My mom was married, but not to my dad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they weren't married yet. My mom actually like hated my dad, which I never knew why. Apparently, he was a real shit in school. But like I know nothing about who my dad was as a kid before he came over to America. I know nothing about what my mom's life was like before she had me. Like the only thing I know one fact about my mom's childhood, and it's something I'll bring up when we talk about the Russian version of Three Musketeers in a little bit. And
Oh,
that's
yeah.
all I know about her childhood. All I know about my dad is that before he was a computer programmer, when he was studying at the university in San Francisco, he worked a part-time job as a security guard in a mall, and he would eat Arby's pretty much every week, pretty much every day, because it was the thing in the food court closest to him.
Oh, Arby's. Oh, God.
This was like 90s Arby's back when the food tasted better because no one gave a shit about what they were putting into it.
Well, see, here's the problem with Arby's, and it because I know the majority of the country doesn't get why people from where I live hate Arby's so much. Um, so Arby's, everything that they sell that's not roast beef, which is like the thing they're known for.
I thought they were known for
Every
curly fries.
well, oh, one second, I'm getting a timeout message from the wife. Yes, yes, I know. We're good. All right. Say hi to Elijah.
Tell her I
It's
say
yeah,
hi.
it's Elijah Wood. I'm talking to Frodo.
I didn't know who Elijah Wood was until I saw Happy Feet.
Yeah, geez, she said I'm sorry. She always rags on me that Samwise and Frodo seem like they're in a relationship. Nice, nice, very good. All right, the thing that stops me from going late is if you let me do this. Did you hear that?
I did. I hear extremely Boston yelling, but I can't make it out.
He said I hear very Boston sounding yelling. I'm keeping all this in, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Oh, don't turn on all Ava's toys. Come on. Shh. That's so funny. She always has to come in at some point and go, "Is Chris actually letting you talk?" She always jokes with me that these podcasts are just going to be me and the guests are never going to get to talk.
I wonder how far her jaw will drop when she hears that I've interrupted you like 3 times. I don't think you've talked over me once.
That's awesome. So I need to make a note to myself to edit that out. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what as you were saying.
Yeah, so I know almost nothing about my parents' lives before, I think, yeah, before they had me, I know almost nothing about their lives.
Hold on, I didn't get to finish my thought. So the reason we hate Arby's so much around here is
Right.
you know how like Philly has the cheesesteak and like the cheesesteak sub, and
The
I'm
original
not
gentrified taco.
the original gentrified taco exactly, and you're in Southern California. What city are you in?
So I'm from San Francisco, and that's
Oh,
where I
I've
grew
been to
up.
San
That's where I
Francisco.
live. But I'm currently in school at UCSB.
Okay, awesome. So what is there a local like food that you could say like they're known for that they think the rest of the country does terrible?
In San Francisco?
Or yeah, either where you grew up or where you are now.
Oh God. I've never had a good burrito outside of this one shop in San Francisco,
I've heard that from a lot of people, and everyone
and no
out
one
there
can
always
agree
says
on what shop it is.
exactly. Okay, so in the North Shore of Massachusetts, so it's very contained to like 4 or 5 cities that are all north of Boston. So it's like Lynn, Beverly, um, Peabody, not really on the coast, Salem. This like small area they call the North Shore, kid.
Yeah, like the Bay Area.
Revere, yeah, same idea, exactly, like the East Bay Area kind of thing.
When you're from a
We make there's a heavy Greek population, and they all have sub shops, and they all make a very specific type of pizza. But that's not the thing, because the Greek pizza is good, but it's not what I'm getting into. They all make roast beef sandwiches, and so you get like Johnny's famous roast beef and Nico's famous roast beef, and they all say famous roast beef. And the thing is it's served warm, it's rare-ish, sliced thin, and it's got usually barbecue sauce, lettuce, and mayonnaise is like the roast beef three-way. And Arby's tries to make that, and they can't do it. Like their chicken sandwiches are great, everything else is great. Their roast beef is garbage, and it's just really funny. And we'll fight people on that.
You lost me at lettuce.
Yeah, and again, that's the way a lot of people like it. I actually like barbecue sauce and pickles. Like that's the way I like it.
Okay, so I have a pet peeve about restaurants and pickles is there's literal dozens of types of pickles, and even if you're just going like base pickles, there's like 3 different kinds between like dill, kosher dill, and sweet, and
Yep.
restaurants never specify what kind of pickle they have, which I
Right?
hate because I only like one specific kind of pickle. I only like kosher dill pickles, and every single time there's a thing with pickles on it, I always have to like just say, no pickles, because there's no way I can look like anything but the biggest asshole if I ask a person, could you please tell me what kind of pickle you have?
Well,
Because
exactly, and they
there's
look
no
at you
way
like,
they
"What do you
know,
mean? What do you mean
because
it's a
no one
pickle?"
checks that.
But so these sub shops, it's always kosher dill,
Thank God.
always. So
Yeah.
that's because that's the only thing that goes on a sandwich with barbecue sauce, in my opinion. The minute you add barbecue sauce, there's your sweet. So you need the kosher dill. A sweet pickle and barbecue sauce is just awful. Even though I like sweet pickles, so that's weird. But
Yeah.
anyway, so you were talking about your family not knowing much about them. So actually, I'll give people, and you can add to this kind of where the idea for having you on, outside of the fact that we've had some really good conversations, and I think we should share them with everybody, and I think it makes a good guest for the show, is I think I had shared about how my distant relatives came over on the Mayflower, and we have finally just proven that. It took a
Mhm.
long time to connect the dot. Now we're in a society, it's like one of those old, like, Daughters of the American Revolution kind of, you're the oldest Americans, even though the natives were here before us. But I won't even get into that because we treated them terrible. But anyway, so that's really cool. So all of this history that I have in this area growing up, and my mom was a big history buff, so she took us to all the old historic places. We live right next to the city where they murdered all the witches in the 1600s. All that's here, but we truly are, the oldest white people in the area. My lineage goes all the way back that far. So that was really cool. And you had said, oh, we should do a thing about experiencing geek culture or experiencing the culture of the United States, but
From
from two
completely
very
different perspectives, yeah.
from
Because
completely exactly.
I think the way I put it was, so you've been here, your family's been here since the inception. You're on the
Yep.
East Coast, and you grew up in like the you're Gen X, right?
Yes, yeah. Oh,
Yeah, and you're Gen
I'm
X.
the Gen X millennial overlap. So I was born in
Yeah,
'84.
and then
So
I'm like first generation child of refugees living in one of the most liberal places in the world, in the country, and I'm at that weird space where where my older brother is for certain a millennial, my younger sister is for certain Generation Z.
interesting.
Yeah, and my
And
brother's five
it's
years older than me, and my little sister's 4 years old, 4 years younger than me.
and when were you born, Elijah?
I was born in '97,
Oh wow.
which
All
means
right.
I was 3 years short of it being really easy to tell what my age is.
Wow. So you're in college right now.
Yeah, I'm actually finishing up college.
Very
I
cool.
graduate in like 2 months.
Oh, congratulations. Well, geez, thank you even more for giving me some time here. You're in this the stressful time of pre-freedom.
Mm, well, freedom with how
Yes.
everything's going on. The fact that I'm going to be trying to make a living in San Francisco.
Oh no.
Mhm.
So you're going back to, I
Yeah,
remember wandering around there and everybody, that wasn't from this area warning me, oh, it's so expensive. And I walked around and it is, but I'm like, oh, so the prices are the same as Boston.
I had a point to make about that, right? So I remember this was from like I think last year. Your brother had just come back from a trip to like California, and he was on a podcast
Yes.
with you saying like how he made the point about how how in Boston things grew up really tall, and how California was like that would happen if they had grown out instead of up.
Yes.
So that wasn't an aesthetic choice. We had to do that because in California, every so often, the ground gets very angry at us.
You live where people aren't supposed to live.
Yeah, like we live in a place that was literally like it's called California, and that's basically the Spanish equivalent of Atlantis because they thought it was just an island completely disconnected from the rest of America.
That's so funny. It,
There's a
it,
mountain. It's yeah.
I don't know if you have you ever been out this way?
When I was in middle school, my family went for like 3 weeks. We went all along the East Coast and the southeastern part of Canada, and we were like chilling out in New York during that part.
Cool.
I made a street performer very angry at me in Boston because I was a horrible little 10-year-old.
I was going to say it's not that hard to do
Yeah.
around here. Everybody's so angry around here.
Mm.
What I was going to say is Boston. There's actually a metal line through Boston that shows where the shoreline used to be, because Boston is a landfill. Like the downtown of Boston and the South Shore of Boston are fake. It's just up on pylons. It's a big landfill. It's so nutty.
I really wish I knew anything about sports I wish I knew anything about sports aside from the Warriors because I'm sure there's like a "this is where we fought back the Yankees" fans line joke in there somewhere.
Oh my God. Yeah, dude, living around here for all that. Oh, I watched cars get flipped. I watched poor kids trying to get back from class in college when the
Yeah.
Red Sox finally won a World Series getting
When
shot with tear gas.
when the Giants won their second World Series, not their first, their second, because this was in 2012.
Yep.
The day before the parade, the principal of my high school had to make an announcement in the middle of seventh period saying, "If you go from school to go to the parade, we will mark you absent. We know a lot of you are going to do it. We just have to warn you, we will not accept absences on that day." And in the build up to that World Series, like during every time during the game, the classes just would have to stop because everyone was watching the games on their phone. Like my physics teacher just gave up, pulled out his projector, and we just watched the game on the chalkboard.
Oh, of course. Of course. Right. Oh man. So wow. So we have a lot of fun stuff we can cover, but I wanted to say, where's your Twitter name? Where's that come from?
Okay, so this is a very long walk. I hope you're ready to take it.
Dude, this is what I'm all about.
Do you want the numbers first or do you want the name first?
Um, Surprise me.
Okay, so you know Neopets?
Yes.
Have you ever tried making an account on Neopets?
No.
So in Neopets, if you tried to make an account and the name was already taken, they would say, "Would you like to try this name instead?" And it would be like a selection of 4 or 5 names, which was the name you put in, followed by a random string of numbers.
All right, I've seen things like that before.
Yeah,
All right.
and so when I was like in single digits age, I tried making my name Mega, and it was followed up, and the suggested sequence of numbers after that was like 701, and I basically shortened that to 7. It didn't work. Shortened that to 70. It didn't work. And then finally, Mega 701 worked. So I just kept it, and I think I only used that Neopets count like twice.
Yeah.
Because I could never figure out what the fuck the appeal of Neopets is. I tried it like 3 times and I just never got it. Uh, but those 7 numbers, 701, stuck with me. And the Leonidas part of it. So, have you ever heard of a game called Bakugan?
No.
Yeah, so this
Surprisingly,
was
man, people don't usually stump me. Okay, go for it.
yeah, it's a collectible card game that's more like a marble shooting game that was very big when I was in middle school. Where you would
Oh,
like stand these little marbles that popped out into monsters. It was like if Transformers all only became balls and you threw the Transformers at other people.
I've seen this.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was a very good cartoon, and it was really fun. And there was a video game of it. There were 3 video games of it. Only one was good, and it was the first one because that was the one that was actually an adaptation of the game. And in that game, your character, the player character, had a signature Bakugan, and the signature Bakugan's name was Leonidas. And he was just this really annoying, petulant little asshole. But he was like a 3-inch big ball creature, and he floated, and it was just for whatever reason I just fell in love with the little jackass, and so
Oh,
I
that's
just kind of
awesome,
kept that
man.
in my, and so I've just kind of kept that as my name, and so I just smashed
Yeah.
those together, and it became Leonidas701.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I just, I thought there was a cool story behind it, and there is. It's always interesting to see where people's Twitter handles come from. Um, yeah. Oh man, that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
So keep on. We got
yeah,
into Boston sports. Yay, Boston sports. Yeah. We're obnoxious. That's really the
yeah.
best thing I can
Well, hey,
say.
at least you guys are not currently giving the Yankees a run for their money as the most hated sports team in the world.
Yeah, but the Patriots are the Yankees of football, so
Yeah,
we
and the
we
Warriors
we
are just
we do accept that wholeheartedly.
yeah. I like the Warriors.
Oh no, it's fine, dude.
Uh, what else was I going to say? Right. Yeah, so basically, sports wasn't a thing in San Francisco for a very long time, and then all of a sudden they became a thing.
Right.
Yeah, and like I think every sport I've ever gotten into, I've gotten into because of video game. Like I got into basketball because of NBA 2K14. I got into wrestling because of
Ah.
WWE 12. Well, no,
Yep.
the actual reason why I originally got into wrestling is like the first memory I have of it is like super embarrassing. It's I was at my grandma's apartment, uh, and she had a TV in her bedroom that was connected to cable, because this was back when my grandpa, the grandpa she was married to, was still alive, so they had a bigger apartment than she does now, and that TV was connected to cable, and I was just randomly channel flipping with my brother and my cousin Elena, and we just came across SmackDown, and I think my brother just went off to do something and took the remote with him. So I was just stuck watching SmackDown, and then a bra and panties match came on, and I was like 8 at the time. So
Oh yeah.
like even pre-puberty, when I didn't even have like any actual feelings about anything at that point beyond just the rage of being tiny. Um, yeah, even then I just saw this bra and panties match and I was just like, hmm. And that's my first memory of wrestling.
That's awesome. Yeah, dude, wrestling. It's funny. I had forgotten how much my brother and I watched wrestling, and I put up on YouTube actually an old movie I made where a bunch of action figures come to life and start attacking my family. And I told him to improvise a scene where he was telling my mom that, if you put toys out on Halloween, they come to life and kill you or whatever. And he interrupts at one point because he thought it would be so cool to point out that he was watching Nitro, which was the pre-SmackDown WWE show.
I thought Nitro was the WCW show.
Maybe it was. See,
Yeah,
this is
Monday
yeah, that
Night
was W. I always forget
Monday
that
Night
W.
Raw and then Monday Nitro.
You are correct. See, you remember more. And I'm just watching. And I go, man, that's probably the last time I ever watched wrestling. And he still loves it. I mean, I had all the games. I was way into it. But Bob went to not SummerSlam. He went to WrestleMania when he was back at the Escapist, the original time they sent him out there.
Yeah, he
That's kind of
also, I
cool.
think, I did hear him on a podcast talking about SummerSlam, where he talked about how when John Cena got suplexed so many times by Brock Lesnar, watching the kids in the audience, it was like they saw Santa get shot.
Yeah, yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, all the chairs in this school in this dorm, they're all these really shitty rocking chairs. It's really annoying and it's bad for my back and thighs.
I think they make that and give them to every university or college
Yeah, but
because I
like
had the same ones.
it's off. They're awful. It makes my bones like just slam up into my muscles. It's
Yeah, everything. It's just it's soul crushing. I think that's the
the
design.
bed's nice.
Oh, cool. So they fixed that at
Yeah.
least for you guys.
Mm.
Nice. Yeah. So first generation. So so you don't know much about it aside from were they escaping? Was where they were? I mean, I know that shit was pretty bad
No,
there at the time, but
they left following the fall of the Berlin Wall, following like the actual collapse of the Soviet Union. They came over as specifically economic refugees, I think.
oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, like my mom's family came over piece by piece. I don't think my dad's family did. I think my dad, his parents, and his sister all came over at the same time. I
Um,
think I haven't actually ever
and
checked on that.
and did they come to California, and that's where
Oh
you were
yeah,
born, or were they,
oh yeah.
kind of moving
Like as far
around?
as I know, they've just always lived in California. Well, obviously,
Interesting.
like since they came to the U.S. Uh, yeah, but like I have family in New York, I have family in Israel, I have family up in Canada.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, my cousin up in Canada, Elisaveta, is actually a chess grandmaster, and she's like, I think only like 3 years older than me, and she was a chess grandmaster, like, I think before she was my age.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an accolade that's not screwing around because I love chess, but I've never been good at chess.
Yeah. I have like a copy of the How to Play Chess book that she wrote somewhere around here. It's
Oh,
very,
that's so cool.
yeah.
Speaking of chess, we're gonna get into the Three Musketeers. Maybe that's a good way to segue into that if you're ready to talk
Oh,
about it.
fuck yes. How far did you get into it?
So I realized it was split into three parts after I
Yeah,
finished the first one.
it's a mini series.
But I finished the first one in its entirety. So
Okay.
and I gotta say, there's a lot of people, especially younger than me, I'll say this in your age group or younger, that have a hard time with basically like early 90s movies,
Oh yeah,
and
I'm one of them.
this looks, like every other movie, of the time period. This was made in like what, the late 70s, 1978.
Late mid 70s, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that. I actually find it super endearing. So I was really impressed with, number one, how quickly I caught on to, because I think this could be the first. Is this was a Russian production?
Uh, it was made by the Ukrainian film studio of Odessa,
Okay,
but it
so
was funded by the Russian government like everything
what
else in the USSR
language
was.
are they speaking? And I
They're
don't mean
speaking
to
Russian.
sound ignorant. Okay, I just want to make sure because it's not a language I speak, and I haven't watched that many films.
Oh yeah, no problem.
It, no, of like, a lot of my foreign film are, Spanish.
Spanish, French, Japanese,
Exactly.
Chinese.
So I wasn't sure, how I'd get acclimated to the vernacular and the beats of the way the person talked versus how the English translation was working out. But I gotta say, after like not even like 2 minutes into it, I was completely accustomed. I could hear the character's voice saying the English things I was reading. I have a very photographic memory and I see things. So I got to say, these actors were all fantastic.
There might be a
Um,
reason for why you were able to acclimate to it so much. If you don't mind me making fun of your accent for a little bit, it's because much
sure.
like the Boston accent, Russian is also a language that you speak without ever actually letting your teeth or lips touch each other.
Fantastic. You
Like
win.
if you listen to someone speak Russian very fast, so two funny things about Russian. One is that if you listen to someone speak Russian very fast, it's so hard to tell where one word ends and another begins because
Yep.
Russian as a language is all like in the throat. And also, if you ever hear a woman speak Russian, it's impossible to speak Russian with a high voice, as I'm sure you noticed in the movie. Like if
Uh-huh.
you saw like the nursemaid who D'Artagnan had to kiss while he's escaping from the guard, and like Constance, who was like the woman who like whose house he was staying in. They all sound like they have high voices, but their voice is so deep.
Yes.
If
Yeah.
you hear someone speak in if you hear a woman from Russia speak in English, the voice is usually pretty high, and then as soon as they switch languages, it's like you're hearing them slowed down.
I've
It's
I've
such a
I've
big shift.
I've noticed that. So yeah, I gotta say, I really thank you for turning me on to this, and I'm gonna go through everything in that playlist you sent, and if you want to send more, please do, because
I sent you
one,
the romantic comedy for you to watch with your
yes,
wife, right?
exactly, and I watched a little of that too, but I not enough to really know what was going on, but I wanted to make sure. It's just life is hard right now, but I had to finish this Three Musketeers one, and it was easy because it was awesome. It
Oh yeah,
really
did you notice
was.
how whenever he like pulls out his sword from the scabbard, it makes like almost like a very high pitched lightsaber noise?
Yeah, dude, the sound effects.
It's so
I
it's like
it
Princess Bride levels of just cheesy
Yeah,
enough.
yeah. It reminded me of like Princess Bride, where it was like a living Looney Tunes cartoon.
Oh yeah,
You
especially when
know?
he's like throwing the bag of flour up at the roof, and there's a scene where Aramis is like the people are running past, and he just sticks his leg out and he trips two of them off the stairs.
Yeah, yeah. The
The
the fight
subtitles don't
scene.
translate it properly. He when he does that, he kind of shrugs, and what he says is like, "How the fuck did?" It's like, "Now how did that happen?" And the subtitles don't catch it, and I'm so sad.
Oh, the playfulness. I loved how each of them was such a fully fleshed out performance, and it made it through in the translation. Like I got, each of their characters and like their approach to the source material, because I'm very familiar with the Three Musketeers. So it was just so much fun to see them having so much fun with it. And then like scenes that go from like, clunky, it's hard to film outdoors, and probably trying to angle it in these sets to make sure you don't see that, this is
And
existing
our
in modern
cameras are
day time.
shitty, and we have to make sure
But
that we get their lip flaps recorded because
right,
everything is ADR'd
yeah, but like for example, the chess match sequence with
with
the
the best line in history.
number one, yeah, the best line in history, and two, the best camera work in the entire movie. Like
Oh yeah,
that tracking shot across the banister while they're
yeah.
walking up the stairs.
So
Like I actually was genuinely worried for his safety in the way
oh
that
yeah,
they
so
shot that.
that was shot in the common room of the place where my mom took ballet as a child, and that is the only fact I know about my mom's childhood.
Yeah, so I mean, tell people, because I didn't say where this was taking place. So tell people about that.
So this movie was filmed in Odessa, which is where my family comes from. It's the way I describe it, it is the place in the Soviet Union that most wants to be France, and that is a
Yeah,
very hotly contested title.
and it's the perfect place to have a Three Musketeers movie take place, if
Oh
that's the
yeah,
case.
oh yeah. But like so the best line in history. What to make sure that we're on the same page? What do you think that best line that I'm talking about is?
Oh man. I mean, their back and forth had so many good lines in it. So just drop it on me and it'll pop right back
So
into
what
my
I
head.
think
And
of
I
specifically is oh sorry, I cut you off.
no, I was gonna say, because I am really tired because my daughter didn't sleep last night, so I don't want to. I'm sure right after I watched it, I would have been, and I just watched it earlier today. So it's just,
It's oh good.
what is it?
It's, so the line I was thinking of is specifically the cardinal asks D'Artagnan to leave the Musketeers and join his forces, and what D'Artagnan says is, I can't say it in Russian because I don't actually speak Russian that well, but what it says translated in English is, "I'm sorry, but you see, all of my friends are in the Musketeers, and
Yes,
by some coincidence, all of my enemies work for you."
yes, yes. By some coincidence,
Yeah, and
that's what
then
I'm
he
talking
goes
about.
out, and
The
his friends are
the
waiting for him.
the playful, yeah. What did you do? What did he say? We played a game of chess,
Yeah.
and
And
they're
then
all
before
like,
that, when he uses the line that Athos used to him when he was challenging him to the duel, when he runs into Porthos as he's leaving, he says the same thing to Porthos that Athos said to him. When he ran into Athos, and Athos said to him after they set up the duel, "Very well, we meet at 12, and at 12:15, I'll cut your ears as you run away from me." And then when he summoned
yes.
Porthos as he ran away, he said like, "Yes, and at 15 past one, as you run away from me, I'll cut your ears." And then he runs away,
Like,
and the other musketeers have to hold Porthos back.
yeah, he just panics, like,
Yeah.
like what? That's
And,
our line.
and then the mess with Aramis where he runs into them, and then when they actually all meet up and they're all in the same place, and Athos asks Porthos and Aramis, "Why are you fighting with him?" And none of them want to say the actual reason because it's really stupid.
A lot of the back and forth, and I don't know if this is just the the source material and the way the people have a tendency to write these types of characters, or if maybe someone saw this movie. But a lot of the sword fighting sequences and the way the humor was in the forefront, like they had so much fun with making this humorous, reminded me of the very first time that Captain Jack Sparrow and um,
Will
uh,
Turner.
Will Turner fight in
Yeah,
that.
their amazing first fight
Yeah,
in the
their amazing
blacksmith shop.
first fight, which is the best fight in the entire series of movies, actually.
I have a
Uh,
soft spot for the wheel fight, honestly.
oh, I mean, yes, it's just so inventive, and the amount of conversation that can happen during a sword fight when a movie really gets that correctly, I really appreciate that.
And
You
their
know,
fight doesn't even start because they
yeah,
get interrupted by the asshole guards.
exactly, and it just it I was immediately taken aback, and I told you earlier in a message, it reminded me of like a Terry Gilliam movie where he's trying to do something that is historical, or something that takes place in a different time period, but he can't help himself but make the characters quirky and strange.
Yeah.
And I love seeing the Three Musketeers approached that way, and the fact that it made it through the translation. That's why I love watching any foreign movie. I hate dubbed movies because I feel the dubbing never quite gets the
I,
humor
I
or
hate
the
dubbed live action movies, but I finally
yeah,
like dubbed animated movies because
right,
animated movies are made to be dubbed.
exactly. And so yeah, man, I really appreciate, and I wish I had made it through all three, but I was psyched I made it because I'm like, oh cool,
Oh,
I made it
you are
through
in
it, and
for
then I'm
such a
like,
treat when you get to the very end. It's such a good scene.
it's really well done, man. I like the
Yeah.
whole
It
cast. I like the
yeah,
villain.
it's the only adaptation of Three Musketeers I can think of where they actually adapt the breakfast they have on the battlefield.
Oh no shit.
Yeah, you see them in the tower and they're like eating breakfast. They have like a picnic blanket and everything, and like Porthos is looking through the arrow slats and they're going like, "How far away is the army? We got 30 minutes. Awesome, come back here. We got some more chicken to get through."
So I wanted to ask you. I wasn't sure if it was a joke or if I saw it properly, but there's a song number in this which we haven't even mentioned yet that this is a
Oh yeah, it's a
musical.
musical. It's a really good musical.
Yeah, it really is, and it's a musical, and it almost seems like it's a musical on a dare. Like they're almost like I bet you don't think we can do this. You know what I mean? Because as soon as characters started singing, I was like, whoa, that, even though you had told me, I'm like, that came out of nowhere. And then it works perfectly. But there's a scene where a horse harmonizes with one of them.
Right. So that's not the actual horse talking. That's Porthos singing, I think.
Okay, I
It's just that
wasn't
it's
sure
Porthos's
if
horse kind of going up like that.
because I wasn't sure if the horse was just like doing like a repeater with him. I'm like, did they really just make the horse sing?
It's just very clever camera work to make it look like that. Because the part that they're singing is something about how the knights of Paris need horses.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
what that song is about is it's kind of about how important cavaliers are to Paris's self identity and like what a knight needs, and like the chorus of it is let's be merry with these feathers in our hats, wine and
Yep,
women.
yep.
It's it's a very good song. Like it
It
is like the
is.
smash hit of the entire series. When I was a kid, it was like all I listened to in the car because my dad had it on cassette.
So yeah, so tell me, I've of course I have found this movie because of your generosity in sharing it with me,
I
and
have been
I
throwing it at everyone I meet.
and I never would have been able to find it because it is entirely in Russian on YouTube. There's nothing in like the YouTube thing you sent where I can go, cool, I'm going to find out who made this movie outside of watching the opening credits. So I'm going to dig into that more. But how did you come upon this movie?
Well, like I said, when I say it was a hit in Russia, it was a massive, mega, monster smash hit in Russia from the first episode. Like, it turned the cast into stars overnight.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a
Deservedly so.
big
They're all
fucking deal.
fantastic.
Yeah, it was a big fucking deal. And my dad, one of the cassettes he played was this had the soundtrack on it, and the song of the Musketeers where they go ba-da, ba-da, ba-da,
Yep.
yeah, that song. That was the only song on that entire soundtrack that I liked when I was 6. So I just had him play it on repeat.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, the songs are fantastic. So it's a three-parter, huh?
Yeah, it's 4 hours total runtime. The third episode is only an hour long.
Cool. I can't wait. I really
It's
dug it.
fucking good, man.
No, it's really good. I wasn't quite sure. I'm like, if anyone recommends something to me, I take them up on it because I'm not, especially when it's something that I culturally would not have found, and there's no way I would have found this. Right? It's just not happening. So man, I really and I can't believe how much I liked it.
It's so fucking good. I,
So
I
what is so it's just straight up D'Artagnan and the Three Musketeers is the official name.
yeah, D'Artagnan e Tre Musketeori.
Yeah. So if you're able to find it on YouTube, and I'll probably share the link with this podcast so
Yeah,
people can
I made
see
a
it.
playlist for you of all
You did.
three parts of it,
That's
along with the romantic comedy I wanted to talk about.
yep. That
I thought that you and your wife would like,
yeah.
which is
So
another big smash hit in Russia.
yeah. So to give me kind of a teaser for that, talk about that one and tell me how you
Okay,
came upon that. Was
okay,
that something your
so
parents showed you too, or did
no,
you?
in college, like 2 years ago, I took a Russian culture class
Oh,
to
cool.
fill my culture requirement for graduation. And they searched a bunch of movies. That's where I saw Bakenbardi, which is another movie I just throw at everyone because it's a fantastic look at how fascism rises through the use of like irony and kind of twisting its own statements and making just enough people, making basically people who aren't on their side take them as a joke up until the point where they're a threat.
Uh-huh.
And it's very smart. It's very clever. It's also funny as fuck. Like it is a pitch black comedy, but it is still a very good comedy. Uh, and like so, if you ever have a chance to look at Buckenbardi, which is Sideburns in English.
Okay.
But yeah, the other movie I watched was I can't remember the name because Jesus Christ, it's a very long name because it's a joke title. But it's something like the irony of fate with the light steam,
All
because
right.
bathhouses are a big thing in Russia.
Gotcha.
And what it's about is
The irony of fate with a light steam. Is that
yeah, ironia sud ironia sudbi ili sljohkim parom. Which yeah, it's the irony of fate, or it's the irony of fate or a light steam.
okay?
Yeah, because again, the start of the movie takes place in a bathhouse, and it's this very funny movie that, at its core, is about how communism has kind of rendered Russia into a bunch of cookie cutter cities. But what it is it's this guy on the eve of his wedding gets super drunk with his friends in a bathhouse. He winds up on a plane. He doesn't realize he's on a plane. When he leaves the airport, he just kind of thinks he's still in his hometown, so he just kind of goes to where his apartment would be in his town, and his key still works, which is where the satire and subversiveness comes in. And then from there, it's a very funny romantic comedy because he obviously stumbles upon this woman who actually lives there. It's really good. They show it in Russia all the time around New Year's Eve. I have never seen what American New Year's, like what the ball dropping actually looks like. To this day, I have no idea what it is because every single time for New Year's, my family just plays a recording of the Russian New Year's celebration.
Oh, that's awesome. So you've never even watched like a recording of what our
To this day,
silly New Year's looks
yeah,
like?
to this day, I have no idea what the hell the ball dropping actually means.
Huh. Yeah, that just seems so.
I assume it's
This
like
is
the Tower of Terror where it just suddenly goes.
no. It goes. Well, it comes down in a minute, so it takes it some time,
Oh,
and
that's
then
not so
they and then
exciting.
and then they count down the last 10 seconds. And
Uh-huh.
the crazy anti-vaccine couple. What are their names? Jim Carrey's ex and Donnie Wahlberg are there for some reason every year now. And they kiss, and everyone goes, and then we all go on living our lives.
Yeah, it's like the old U2 song says, "Nothing changes on New Year's Day."
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of our traditions are strange.
Well, traditions in general are strange. Like
Yeah, so yeah,
traditions are what we call things that we no longer have a use for, but we want to keep around.
right. So what obviously, an interesting part of this is growing up, do you remember 9/11? You were
No, I
4.
was 4.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figure. And I was 18, and I feel like it was 12 lifetimes ago that happened. But that was living over here and living in the place where the planes took off from. That was hard. I mean, it was hard for everybody, but goddamn, um, you know, but I would imagine, where where your family comes from, because we have the privilege in this country of not having, outside of our own people constantly murdering each other, not living through too many land wars around here. So that was like the closest thing I can think of in my lifetime to feeling like that.
Yeah.
So
My parents hadn't ever been really involved in land wars, as
yeah,
far as I know, at
it's just
least.
it's just a part of the world, right? I
Yeah. Right now, there's a big fucking mess in that part of
uh-huh.
Ukraine, which is. Okay, before I start talking about that, let me put it to you how my father said the popular joke was to describe the current political situation in Ukraine.
Sure.
So the joke is Ukrainian government used to be so corrupt that you could get away with literally anything if you bribed the right people.
Yep.
Nowadays, the government is so corrupt and such a mess that no matter who you bribe, nothing will get done.
So the corruption got caught up in its own red tape.
Yeah, because of a lot of just messes upon messes upon messes, because Russia is a thing that has been going, Ukraine specifically is a thing that has been going on for like hundreds of years, and it has never once in history actually been stable.
Oh God.
Yeah, and then the whole Crimea invasion happened, and now that's a whole thing, and now
Yep.
Ukraine is kind of trying to like convert the. Because the reason why the Ukraine thing is so busy is because an even half of the country still identifies itself as Russian. Like I said, my family's from Ukraine, but I still I call myself Russian,
Yeah.
and they're kind of trying to like squash that out. It's such a fucking mess, and the worst part of it all is that whoever ends up with that part of Ukraine at the end of this war is going to be the loser because it's a mess.
Yeah, right. Your consolation prize. You win this nation. Have
Yeah, it's
fun.
like, yeah, it's not. That's not even the consolation prize. It's like such a Pyrrhic victory.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, and again, it's just, dear sweet Christ, it's such a goddamn mess.
So the preempt to that, me coming from a family that's been here for a long time, I'm my direct my direct lineage, like immediate family, are Portuguese, French Canadian, and German. Right. So it's a weird mutt of a person that I am. But, traditional wise, most of the traditions are, there's not a whole lot of, even though my grandmother was first generation Portugal, and my grandfather was first generation German, um, you know, uh, most of those traditions kind of merged into that. None of the things we did growing up felt really foreign. Like it felt like, okay, I'm doing the same things as the rest of my friends. So, and we're such a melting pot of an area anyway that happens. But what about you growing up? Did you have, like, being a first generation Ukraine or Russian, were there things that you and your family did that were like
Well,
very specific to you guys?
well, like I said, I've never seen an American New Year's celebration.
Yeah, exactly.
But like I'm Russian, like I'm very specifically Russian Jewish. Like,
Oh, even
like
so.
ethnically, I'm like almost 100% Jewish.
So did you listen to my episode with Mason? I think that might have been my first episode of Shooting the Shit.
No, because I think I was in the middle of crying at midterms.
Oh
I was
yeah.
at that I was at that point of studying for midterms where I'm kind of like going in a semicircle around my desk and like you ever seen like a lion tamer like kind of try and check if a
Yeah.
lion's asleep or not and you got
Yeah.
like my textbook was gonna bite me.
So that's hilarious. So Mason, that was he was the one that put me up over the limit to become my first guest on that. Um, I done like a little like promo, get me over $60 or whatever it is, and you can
Right.
be the first guest.
I remember
And
that,
he
yeah.
and he
That was
won.
when we started talking.
Yeah, exactly. And so when I had him on, that episode of Shooting the Ship became a similar thing where he's like, I had done an episode with my brother about being, or we had mentioned in an episode with my brother about being raised in Catholic school. And he had said, "Oh man, our episode of Shooting the Shit should be us talking about the upbringing of you going through Catholic school and me being in a very traditional Jewish upbringing." And I was like, "That sounds perfect." So it made a good episode. So it's very kind of similar, but about a different thing than what we're doing. So I think that's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep going. What other things? What other
Uh,
things were?
well, I grew up in outer Sunset in San Francisco, which means that I grew up around mostly like Asian people.
Yep.
Like my school was, I think, my grade in school, it was like three white kids, two black kids, and then the rest of the like 80 people there were Asian. in my grade.
Interesting.
Yeah, because that's just kind of the genetic makeup of Outer Sunset.
I live in Lynn, Massachusetts, which is, I don't
The
know if you've
land of
ever
John
heard of.
Cena. I'm just assuming that's
Yes,
pretty
yes.
accurate.
No, John Cena is from Amesbury, Massachusetts, which is on the New Hampshire border, which is very far from here. It's like 40 minutes north of here. But
That counts as far.
for me, so Boston, for example, I say I'm in a suburb of Boston, but Boston is 15. Yeah, without traffic. So if I left my house right now, I'd be in Boston in 15 minutes. I can actually see it out my window. Um, but if
It's
I
like how the Bay Area covers like an
yes,
hour around San Francisco.
but if I left at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, it would take me 2.5 hours to get there. But
Yeah,
what I
and that's
was
because that's because you had to walk the entire distance because by car it would have
yes,
taken you 5.
yes. So Lynn, Massachusetts is it's always been a very immigrant filled area. It was Italian and Portuguese and Irish back in the day, and then it's Cambodian and Asian and African American. Big mix. But because I was in Catholic school, and because Catholic school I found was the way that basically semi-racist white people kept their kids away from the people they didn't like. Um,
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately, um, I didn't have a Asian, African American, Cambodian, Spanish kid in my class till third grade.
Mm.
And it's nuts because all of my friends outside of school who were in public school were all of those things. And so it was very weird. And I remember they held an assembly at my school to like prepare everyone for the first African American girl to come to the school. And I'm like, this is so wrong. Like even when I was like 8 years old, I'm like, this is terrible. Like, why are we doing this?
At least it's better than
Uh,
it would have been like 50 years ago, where
oh,
during that
oh
assembly they
God,
would have taught
yeah.
you proper rock throwing technique.
Yes, yes, they would have been like, and here's how you tie a noose. We're like, wait a minute, what? No, no. Oh, no, it's just to scare them. Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's the. So you were saying, so you grew up around all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, which means and also like my older brother was very much into anime and stuff like that, because this is when Toonami was like firmly cemented as a
Yes.
thing. So like I would have
Oh,
to like
Toonami.
badger my dad into letting me stay up past 9 o'clock to let me actually watch Toonami on Saturdays. Uh, and Toonami Jetstream was a thing for like a couple of years, and that's how I watched like almost all my anime for a very long time. Is just I would watch Toonami Jetstream.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, like to put it this way, I literally cannot remember a point in my life where I didn't know the entire story of Dragon Ball Z.
that's awesome.
Like I feel like as long as I can remember, I've known Raditz, Vegeta, Frieza, Raditz, Vegeta, Dodoria, Zarbon, Ginyus, Frieza, Android 1920, Android 17, 18, 16, Cell, Boo.
You just put a big smile on my face. I remember
I
when
remember going to Borders, and this was when they
yes.
were releasing the manga of Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z were being released at the same time, like issue 1, issue 1, issue 2, issue 2. I would go there every 3 months to pick up the latest issue. At one point, I had an entire run of Dragon Ball on my shelf, and I had like all of Dragon Ball Z up until issue like 17.
So I forget what channel it was, but it was pre.
Cartoon
It was
Network.
actually pre Cartoon Network, where they would each day of the week they would flip flop by showing, and they were showing in order. And this is I can't remember how old I was when this started, but my brother and I watch it. They would show a Dragon Ball episode one day and then a Dragon Ball Z episode the next day. So they were showing them in parallel moving forward.
I've actually still never seen an episode of Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball was weird.
Yeah, I've read the entire Dragon Ball manga. Like I experienced
Yeah,
Dragon Ball Z through the anime. I've experienced Dragon Ball through the manga,
that's awesome.
which is why it actually I did read all of Dragon Ball Z. It wasn't until years after I had read it that I realized when it was written they were spelling Krillin Kururin, because every time I saw it, I just kind of my eyes just filled in the entire word just Krillin.
Yep, yep. Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, so okay, so that paints the picture of where you grew up. And so outside of New Year's, what else were you guys doing that
Before
was
we remodeled the house, Shabbos was a thing every Friday night.
yep.
I used to be able to do the Shabbos prayer, but I don't remember what it is anymore. Jewish prayer is very strange because I don't know if you've ever seen people praying in a temple,
I
but
have.
they don't stand still. Like, have you ever seen one of those dipping birds?
Yep.
That's basically how it goes. It's like just up and down and up and down and up and down.
It's
We've got to
it's
work on our
it's like a
core strength in case
metronome,
the
a
Romans
human
burst in.
metronome.
Yeah, and then there's the dancing, and I didn't really pay much attention in temple and stuff like that. Like, my family didn't go to temple. I would just have to deal with it whenever I went to like a Jewish summer camp. I would always just like lay down on a table somewhere in the back, and I would steal one of the rabbi's hats because rabbi hats look really cool.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, and I would just steal that. And my hair is like super bushy, so yarmulkes don't really stay on it. So I would just put one of the rabbi hats on. I would lay in the back on a table and I'd like go to sleep.
So okay, so you were doing that's not something I was doing, so that's very different. I one of the things that and it sounds from my friends that I know that grew up Jewish, a lot of the child upbringing is repetition. It's learning things over and over and over again so you can repeat them, and all the parents go, isn't that cute, he knows the prayer, or whatever.
My dad used to make me for like several years of my life, like up until I think 7th grade or something. My dad used to make me write like 100 words a day. Just write anything, 100 words of it.
Wow.
Like literally
so
handwriting, and my handwriting is awful.
I've said this on the podcast before, but the things they used to beat into our head, it was all I don't like learning
Possibly
by
literal, considering
yes.
Catholic school.
Yes. I don't like learning by memorization. I like learning by like practicality. So
I remember that's why
yeah.
that's why I love him.
But check out, like, I'm gonna go catatonic right now, so let me know when I'm done and I'll come back. But being Jewish, this is the evil part. This is the Jesus part of the Bible. But I can say all of the books in order from
Really?
memory. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts in the letter to the Romans, 1st, 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st, 2nd Thessalonians, 1st, 2nd Timothy, Titus, Philemon, Hebrews, the book of James, 1st and 2nd Peter, 1st and 2nd, 3rd John, Jude, Revelation.
And that's a Mormon listing all the children he had by his first wife.
Oh man. That's awesome. And then,
Thank
I
you.
used to be able to do the Old Testament, but that was Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st Samuel, 2nd Samuel, and then I lose it.
Yeah, don't worry. I don't know the names of any of these things.
No,
I
you
just
see what
learned
I mean?
Torah.
Why do I know that? I only went to Catholic school through 9th grade.
Presumably for the same reason as why I can remember the name of pretty much every single character in Dragon Ball Z.
Exactly. Yeah, but see, Dragon Ball's interesting.
Oh.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
It has its dull parts.
Yeah, no, it does. It has, its multi-episode
Those actually aren't the dull
conversations.
parts for me. The dull parts for me is just I think that the dull parts for me, like of Dragon Ball, was just whenever they would kind of have Goku just like on his own dealing with civilization and not knowing what he was doing. Which, like,
Yeah.
as I said, I experienced that in print form, so I could just read through it super fast.
You have been listening to part 1 of episode 6 of Shooting the Shit with Chippa with my guest Leonidas701. That's at Leonidas701 on Twitter. His real name is Elijah, and this was a great conversation, and I hope you enjoyed the first half, and the next half will be coming soon. As always, you can find the Chipman Brothers Tangent, Creating Geeks, and the Talkbuster podcast, all made by me, as well as going to patreon.com/thechippa and hopefully sending me a few bucks. Until next time, this has been Chippa. Have a good night.